Welcome to the inaugural webinar series in our community of practice, Lunch and Learn. I'm your coordinator, May White, and I am delighted to welcome Brandon Geldart from SERNbc to take us away and tell us a little bit about what SER Northern BC does.
Thanks, May. I'm going to share my screen here. Can you see that?
Yeah, looking good.
Okay. My name is Brandon Geldart. I am a registered forest technologist, and I am a project coordinator with SERNbc, which stands for the Society for Ecosystem Restoration in Northern BC. This is a group I've been a part of for almost 5 years, and I'm really excited about the work we do in my professional work. It's the stuff that really gets me out of bed in the morning, so I'm very excited to talk about it. We're a different organization because we like to advocate by doing something and not just have papers and research reports. We really want to show on the ground results and advocate by doing. And the reality is that this is needed right now because development, land management, climate change, that they're all agents for change. And all of our activities are going to impact the ecosystem and the services they provide. And that's really, really important because if we're looking at what the natural world provides us, a lot of it's not quantifiable. If we look at forestry, we can quantify what the timber value is, but we don't really see the impacts to watershed health in a real meaningful way, and what that means to farmers and local communities who are dealing with droughts. They're very large scale issues, and we're really trying to advocate for having these larger conversations by showing real world examples and having something we can see in the flesh. CERN originally started in 2006 as a program that was internal to government, and it was developed to kind of become something that would address the values that FERPA was missing. And in the Vanderhoof area, this really took, it started snowballing and doing a lot of really interesting things where the local public got very, very engaged with the work, and they really believed in it. And in 2013, the ministry said they were no longer going to support the project, but the local government workers really wanted to continue on with the work, and that's when it became a nonprofit society. It's been really, really effective in coming up with solutions and engaging the public and engaging government and industry and First Nations all in these big problems that we're seeing around our local communities. And because of that success, in 2016, CERN was asked to expand our ER services to the Skeena and the Northeast, as well as the entire Amanika. And we've really kind of shaped a different identity over time. We are made up of individuals from varying backgrounds and disciplines and different cultures. And that is really a big part of why I think we're successful. We become a place that people can kind of take off their company hats and get out of their silos to try to find some common ground. And when I look at the issues that we're having on the landscape and in the world today, that's really the biggest thing we're missing, is this ability to find common ground. And that's mainly what we try to do. We advocate by doing, and we do it through collaboration. So our membership is really wide stretching. Our board of directors is really wide stretching as well. And we have people coming and going over time, but it really does become this melting pot of different professional opinions and different opinions from people who are living out on the land base. Because we are a nonprofit, we do rely on external funds. And one of the things that we really try to take home here is that money's not free. We want to manage funds effectively, and we want to do the most with as little as we can. And because of that, we're developing very, very good relationships with funders, and we're trying to find true cost and use true market outlets to really stretch our budget so we can do more of the work that's going to do positive things for the ecosystems and the ecosystem services. So some of these funds come from government, like the land-based investment strategy. Some are coming from other organizations like the Habitat Conservation Trust Foundation and the Fish and Wildlife Compensation Program. SERNbc has been another organization who's funded our projects in the past. And we just really are grateful for the support, and we really want to try to do as much with those funds as possible. So our mission is to manage the structure and function of vulnerable and degraded ecosystems in northern BC, and to achieve a desired future condition that will sustain ecological services and human socioeconomic needs. We're really trying to fight for the values that appear in the landscape that make northern BC a place we want to live. None of us are here for the shopping, let's be fair. We're here to really support and live and play in the outdoors and be a part of the local areas. We have a bunch of operating principles, and these are really, really important to us, because when we're having partnerships with different organizations, we have to be sure that we're not inheriting statutory and non-statutory obligations. Sometimes we do consider taking non-statutory obligations if it benefits a larger strategy. So it is something we will consider, but we generally try to steer away from it. We work on land statuses that have no restrictions, and we want to make sure that we have appropriate permits for everything we're doing. So everything we're doing generally has a First Nation partner as well as a government partner, so that way we can understand that, you know, we're trying our best here to do something that's on board and legal. We're not trying to be sneaky. We're trying to do something that is free of conflict, or free of as much conflict as it can be. And if we do find tension between values on a landscape, which we often do, we try to mitigate those with dialogue. And if we can't mitigate it, then a lot of the times we walk away. And there's enough work out there for us that we can really do that. Everything we do is through collaboration. It is with direct partnerships from First Nations and government and industry and local stakeholders. We find this funding to promote these projects and promote people to do the work in various avenues, and we think of some creative solutions to find real world, true market applications to stretch budgets. We are a non-for-profit, so we're not here making gobs and gobs of money. We spend everything we have on doing more and more restoration. If we have a surplus, it is put towards delivering our mandate. We have varying scales of priorities. So some of these are very small projects. Some of the projects we're doing are really tying into larger scale land management objectives and asking some really interesting questions about them. And last but not least, the one thing that I really do want to focus on here, I'm going to talk a little bit more about it, is that we are focused more on ecosystems versus species. There are certain species that people rally behind, like moose, and we do work with moose a lot, but we are trying to be a lot more holistic and look at having healthy ecosystems as opposed to having just healthy moose populations. So I'll give an example about that in a minute here. So additionally, our board of directors has outlined some ecosystems of importance. This is current, and over time, this will probably expand. Open forest types are really, really important because they provide ungulate winter range for ungulate populations. They're resistant to fire in a lot of cases. We have an issue because decades of fire suppression has caused fuel buildup. Conventional forestry takes out fir stands, and they're really hard to reestablish, so they don't put them back. Some of the plantations that we're looking at around the landscape are really degrading the effectiveness of these stands to withstand fire. And we're seeing that in areas like the Great Beaver, where we have ungulate winter ranges that are burned because we have perfect ladder fuels going straight through it. So this is a real big focal point for us. We love fir. It is a keystone species, and it's something we really want to promote. Deciduous and mixed wood forests are really important for a lot of different species. Cottonwood is one of the gold standards for wildlife, and we have an issue provincially because of forest management that has really just eradicated all broadleaf species. And having it on the site has a lot of benefits that we are trading off in perceived timber value. It increases our resilience to fire and our stands and forest ability to withstand intense wildfire. It changes wildfire behavior. If you have deciduous on a site and it creates a more prominent humus layer, that humus layer is more effective at retaining moisture. And they don't generally have a lot of ladder fuels, and they just don't burn as effectively. So we're really big on trying to promote deciduous. We are really looking at ecosystems at risk or ecosystems supporting species at risk. And these are really important because the species that thrive in these areas are really focused on and operating in a bit of a niche. This project here is a whitetail, the whitetail project. I'll talk about this more in depth in a second. Wetlands are really, really important because they are meccas of biodiversity, and they degrade pretty steadily after disturbance because of impacts to feeder streams and impacts to hydrological function. We are really big proponents in supporting beavers because beavers create wetlands and they support a lot of different species like moose and birds and waterfowl by creating dams. They also make our landscape more resilient by retaining water and charging our water tables. So if we can promote beaver populations in a lot of areas, and then we will try. One of the projects I'll talk about here in the Northeast in a minute is really focused on this idea of just letting beavers be. Fish habitat and fish passage is a huge part of what we do. We have an individual, Al Irvine, whose his whole career is just dedicated to finding fish passage issues and rectifying them. And the approach that he takes is really, really unique. And I really appreciate it because he's looking at the fact that we can't fix every issue on the landscape, but he's targeting the ones that will have the most benefit. There was a study that was done by the Pacific Salmon Foundation that they presented at one of their webinars where they were talking about what happens to fish post-disturbance. So if a wildfire burns through, what happens? And they had two streams where they were monitoring the before and after. It just happened that the wildfire went through, and initially after the fire, there was nothing in these streams, but over time, the one that had good connectivity had larger fish return, and it looked at the disturbance as actually being a pretty good thing because the fish moved away and they incited some competition and they came back as a healthier stock. So what we do, what Al does, is looks at these breach culverts and finds creative ways to find funds and leverage industrial users to put in bridges and get rid of these culverts. Forest ecosystems vulnerable to climate change. This one's really difficult to kind of wrap our heads around because we're operating with models and best guesses. A lot of the time we can apply science to it, but the reality is that the future forests, nobody really knows what's going to be perfect. So again, this is a really good example of just promoting keystone species to make the landscape more resilient. This picture on the right here is out of a journal in California where they said beavers are nature's best firefighters. And as you can see, it's a completely burnt landscape, and the only green that we have in it is created because of beavers. So a lot of our ecosystems of importance have overlapped. Douglas fir is more resistant to wildfire, so is deciduous. So just promoting these values over time and having some overlap and trying to do things more holistically as opposed to having things in a single box is really how we're going to make a bigger impact. I've got a few projects here that I'm going to talk about. We've got dozens and dozens that we've done over the years, but I'm just going to touch on one in each region. In the Skeena, the pictures I previously shown of caribou, we've done the Whitesail Reach Island Woody Debris Management Project. We partnered directly with First Nations in the area to remove gobs and gobs of downed woody debris that was floating in the water surrounding these islands. And these islands are really, really important because they're all along a caribou migratory route. And as the caribou get to these islands, that's generally able to stop to calve because they have some security from predators. And because there was so much debris in the area, they couldn't actually make it to the island. So we partnered with First Nations and government and industry to pull out a bunch of this woody debris. Some of it was utilized to offset the cost. And we've had ongoing monitoring ever since. And this monitoring has been really, really important for the local nations because it's providing some data sources that is really showing how their territories are being impacted by industrial activity. So they're using this to really steer some development away from the areas. The Northeast is an area that we've really had limited involvement in, and it's not that we're steering away from it. A big part of it is we've just had close to 20 years more experience dealing with projects within the Yamanika. It also seems like a lot of organizations are already operating in the Northeast, and we don't really care if we're involved. We love to be involved and support people, obviously, but if the work's being done and it's being done effectively, then why do we need more cooks in the kitchen? But we are interested in supporting people if they want us to help, and we're really excited about venturing into new areas and learning about new things. This project that we have here is a beaver pond leveler system that was installed in Summit Lake Provincial Park. There was a problem beaver here who was jamming up the waterway underneath this bridge, and the whole parking lot was flooding out, and they were just getting rid of the dam, and the beaver would come back at night and fix it. And one of the solutions that people had talked about was getting rid of this beaver, but it was a beautiful, just crystal blue lake, and if they got rid of the beaver entirely, then the lake would disappear or really be diminished. So we hired Silver Creek Wildlife and put on a 2-day training seminar for anybody who was interested. We had a couple people show up. It was Blueberry First Nation, Fort Nelson First Nation showed up for part of one day, and BC Parks was there to try and install this beaver pond leveler. Basically what it is it's a culvert that tricks the beaver into thinking that they've clogged it, but that they can't figure out where the leak is coming from. So really what'll happen is the lake or the waterway will stay at the same level you install the culvert. And these are really, really cost effective to install. They seem to work really, really well. And you get the benefit of keeping a wetland in an area without having damage to your infrastructure. So this was really cool. This was a real feel-good project for us. I think we all had a lot of fun with it. And this is a big one that changes culture. We had the Ministry of Transportation and some people from highways come out and look at this project. And at first they were laughing at us because we're in the water riding these pipes and trying to get them to sink. And then by the end of it, they're taking pictures and they're seeing the value in it because it's as cost effective to install this in a 1-day operation as it is to move equipment up there every time you have to clean out the culvert. So it was a really, really fun project to be a part of. Most of my work happens in the Yamanika, and it generally surrounds moose. And although moose are a species of social concern, they're not really a species of special concern. But people rally behind them, and that doesn't mean they're not important. They mean a lot to First Nations. They mean a lot to Canadians. If you read old government documents, they refer to moose and how important they are to people living out on the land a lot. And there's a lot of different methods we have when we're looking at promoting healthy moose populations. And these methods, although we're trying to promote this species of social concern, they also benefit a lot of other things. So our goal here is to do something that will engage people, but something that will be a little bit more holistic. So my background is in forestry, and generally when I think about the impacts that forestry has, the same three things kind of come up. It's harvest intensity at the stand level and the landscape level. It's silviculture regimes, so just leave some space for nature, and road densities. So when we're dealing with moose, we're dealing with western toad, we're dealing with fisher or caribou, removing linear features is always beneficial. Reducing conifer densities so other things will grow is almost always beneficial. Promoting browse species and improving ungulate winter ranges has pretty wide scale positive impacts. So the first project that I did with CERN when I came on was this variable space thinning project. I came in about halfway and took it over from my predecessor, Mark Steinen. In the end, we did just over 400 hectares of variable space thinning over 56 square kilometers, which sounds really, really impressive, but it's really just the home range of 4 or 5 cow moose. Additionally, we took about 120 kilometers of legacy forest road around these areas. And when we talk about balancing values, each one of these roads is an area that we're not going to get timber from in the future rotation. It's bad for predator-prey dynamics. They're bad for hydrological function. So there's a lot of wins getting rid of these features. This project was really a jumping off point for us, and it's kind of evolved. When I took on the project, I really crunched the numbers and tried to make this as cost effective as possible, but we ran into some issues. Just an effectiveness with dealing with young plantations of pine, and cost effectiveness as well. So if you don't cut off every single branch of that pine tree, it continues to grow. They self-perpetuate and they self-seed really well. So if these trees aren't tall enough that they're providing shade, you just have more pine grow. So we've tried to go to a little bit older plantations and find cost-effective ways to modify them. This kind of turned us to finding industrial outlets and really trying to use the wood to offset the cost. This is a project we did in McLeod Lake. We just wrapped it up this winter, and I'm really, really excited about the results I'm seeing. I've spent a lot of time out here in the last 3 years, and this is the first time I've seen songbirds out there. I'm seeing raptors come in after rabbits. I'm seeing moose. I got charged by a bull moose last week, which was exciting to see out there. And we're seeing increases in fur bearer populations just from starting with tiny voles and field mice in the piles we've left. So trying to create decay and complexity and openness and just let space for nature go. In addition to these, like I said, we've got dozens and dozens of other projects, fish passage, Douglas fir migration, prescribed burns, shallow wetland enhancement, and more. A lot of these are on our website, so please check us out. And if you have any questions, please do not be afraid to drop me an email. Our next steps on an organization, as an organization, are to continue growing organically. We want to build out in the Northeast and the Skeena and continue our presence within the Yamanika and just really build on our successes as a grassroots enterprise and just facilitate these discussions and continue the dialogue. I'm not always certain that the projects that we do have a benefit to the ecosystems that we're managing. Some of them I do, some of them, don't really go as planned and you don't see the results afterwards. But I am sure that every single project has a positive impact to the people that are involved. And we just want to continue doing that. Truthfully, we want to build our program and project delivery to sustain us internally, and we're going to continue working with government and First Nations and industry and the public and other stakeholders as well. So, thank you very much.
Thanks, Brandon. That was amazing. I appreciate the overview of CERN, even working directly for CERN. There's a lot of insight there for me. As we're a smaller group today, I'm going to stop the recording here so we can have a more productive conversation maybe. But I want to shout out to the Community of Practice organizing team, the BC Wildlife Federation, Society for Ecosystem Restoration in Northern BC, Habitat Conservation Trust Foundation, who has let us use their Zoom account for these webinars, and of course, the BC Wildlife Federation. So thanks to all, and Brandon, thank you so much for joining us today.